Good morning. This Lorenzo Generation YouTube channel. Thank you so much for all your likes, all your shares, all your subscriptions. It's really helping us to grow and do better. And please don't hesitate to point out the areas you may want us to correct, you may want us to clarify, you may want us to explain further. In one of our last videos, we promised that we're going to talk about flight brief. What exactly is flight brief or pre-flight brief, as some companies may call it? Flight brief is simply the information or the product of the information you got while doing your pre-flight planning. The information you give to the crew that's the pilot flying the airplane, the captain and the first officer. Now, usually people don't understand. Don't forget that those two guys, the one sitting on the left is a pilot as well as the one sitting on the right. But in this case, the one sitting on the left is the captain in command, and the one sitting at the left is the second pilot or the first officer. And some cases you might have two captains flying. That does not mean that the one sitting on the right is not a captain per se, but in that particular flight, the one that has command is the one on the left hand side. It's actually for fixed wings. For helicopter is a different situation. It's a different kettle of fish. So we are going to explain flight briefing. Usually when crew report for their flight briefing, the first thing a dispatcher should check is check their documents, their licenses, their medicals, their passports for international flights especially. You need to check that to make sure that all of them are up to date. All of them are with the crew, because according to regulation they have to be handy at all times. So if you check their licenses and their medicals and all is in check, now proceed to the documents. The documents usually for the flight will be arranged before they come in. You start with what is called permit, overflight clearance permit, which would have been obtained by the dispatcher before the briefing. Usually for scheduled airlines is given in bulk. Airlines like Qatar, Air Peace, British Airways that run scheduled operation. These permits are issued in bulk since they have a standard schedule. So usually you go through it to make sure the permits you have are still valid for your flight on that day. After that, you go through what is called the DSR, the Daily Status Report of the Aircraft, which is usually issued by the maintenance team. The maintenance team will do evaluation on the aircraft to be flown and issue what is called daily status report. This daily status report is telling us, both the dispatcher and the pilot, the state or the status of the aircraft, what the aircraft can do, if there are limitations based on minimum equipment list, which I mentioned in one of my videos, list of items that are in operative period of flight but are permitted to be in operative period of flight. If there are CDL documents for penalties for external part of the aircraft that are missing prior to flight. So these informations are embedded in the DSR. After checking the DSR and all is in order, we go into the operational flight plan, which contains the nav log, the route to be flown, the weight and balance information for some airlines, and for some the weight and balance information is not there, but the expected payload you planned with. The fuel information, you check whether the fuel the captain requested is actually the fuel we used to plan. Check all your fuel, your sector fuel, your trip fuel, alternate, holding, your additional reserve fuel, and for some people, discretional fuel, alternate fuel. Make sure that all of them are in conformity with the standard operating procedure, and of course the civil aviation rules. After checking all that, you cross-check your routines to make sure they actually follow the route of flight. Then we'll go into the weather charts. We'll check the wind charts. Usually it's good for you to print for the previous hour, the prevailing hour, and the next hour. This will help you monitor like a trend of what have happened, what is happening, and what you're expecting. So these informations about weather will help the crew plan. Yes, after the wind chart, you go into the significant weather chart, you look at it to see where you're expecting embedded and cumulonimbus cloud, which is a possibility of thunderstorm and rain en route. You go through them, and then you go through the NOTAMs, notice to airmen, telling you about all your en route alternates, all your alternate en route. That's in case you lose an engine while en route and it's no longer possible for you to fly and come back to your departure. You require en route alternate airports, of course. So you check all your NOTAMs in all your en route alternates and make sure that all those airports are open and operational. If there's a case of emergency or pressurization that you may need to now divert to your en route alternate. After that, you check your weather at your destination, your weather en route, the weather at your alternate. Yes, you need to check all these and make sure all are in check. Of course, some airlines are still using physical documents. These documents are arranged in this way. Then after that, you make sure at least the crew have general declaration. That's a document usually declaring the health of crew. We call it GENDEC for short, general declaration. And then you make sure they are in check. And after general declaration, your ATC flight plan, your ICAO flight plan, which you have already filed with the appropriate ATS unit, depicting the route of flight, depicting your exit and entry points. While you are making a flight plan, you need to take note of your exit and entry point into countries, especially for flight that you overflying countries. Don't forget that you've been granted permits, overfly permits into overfly permits to overfly certain countries. For instance, if you are flying Lagos to Johannesburg now, when you cross Port Harcourt, you are entering first Douala, that's Cameroon. You have been granted overflight permit to overfly Douala. That's if you are following that route. You are going to overfly Libreville. You have overfly permit to overfly Libreville. You are overflying Luanda. You are overflying Windhoek, that's Namibia. You are overflying Gaborone. You are overflying all the countries and routes there that I can remember now. It's not something that you just memorize here, but I've worked with that routes, I've plotted flights within that route, that's why I can remember some. So all these informations are the things you collate and then hand over to the crew and brief the crew. Now, if the crew is in agreement with all the information provided, they can now proceed to the aircraft. So this is just like an overview of what to do in pre-flight briefing, the required documents that you need to brief the crew with. For some airlines, the weight and balance, like the loose sheet, will always come after boarding, because this document is usually prepared with the actuals. You don't prepare that with estimate. Yes, but for some airlines, the counter would have closed before the crew reporting. So, but with this, but for most airlines, the weight and balance is done few minutes before closure of counter and few minutes before boarding is completed. So you just prepare based on the actual figure loaded in the hold and the actual figure of passengers on board the aircraft. So this is just the overview. Please tell us how you feel. Tell us what you think about pre-flight briefs, and we'll be glad to share more of the ones that we forgot. Thank you so much. Don't forget we are doing this to enlighten some upcoming flight operation officers, dispatchers, and young pilots who might be considering this career. Thank you so much. and do have a wonderful day.